You drinking, Mark?
How can you hear my ice?
Yes.
What's up, Katy? Oh, I've been making the joke all week. I've been drinking a lot of cranberry juice like I'm on my period or something.
Are you having like really bad? Was it? Isn't cranberry juice also good for like a UTI? Are you okay, Mark? Do you need like blink twice if you need me to bring you medication?
Oh man. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'll try to keep my ice
Okay.
shaking down.
No, don't even worry. I'm literally parked in a vehicle right now because Chad's training. He's sparring with Ivan right now, so I'm chilling parked in front of Gracie, hanging out. So
Oh, nice. That's really cool that they've been able to get that sparring in. I mean, I think it's going to be good for both of them.
I agree. I think I'm really excited. So shout out to Ivan. His fight will be on Fight Pass. So I'm really excited. We're gonna be watching it. Um,
Yeah, I know. I messaged him, and I'd like to get him on here, but he said he's not on Twitter as of yet. But I see hopefully a lot more people coming up into the platform soon.
Me too. I think it's I agree. Due to political circumstances, I think there's gonna be a lot more people on here pretty soon.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think it's going to be great. I'm excited to see Ivan fight. He's a hell of a competitor on the mat. I've seen him a lot in jiu-jitsu. So I'm looking forward to see him in MMA.
He really is, man. I've been watching him spar, and it's so cool the way so there's a few different people that come and spar, and every time someone chucks a front kick, he just picks it and is immediately grappling with them. Like no cares given, like is immediately taking their back and taking them down. It's crazy. Like every single time I've seen it. I was here taking photos of it, which is really cool, but man, it is so cool to see him like spar and just watch how he transitions to grappling so well.
Yeah, and it's good for Chad. I know it's definitely stuff that we can work on. I've been excited that he's been out there and excited to get back on the mat with him and kind of pick that apart because he's going to see that, as good a striker as he is, he's going to see it a lot as far as people trying to get him down on the ground.
Oh yeah, I think like up against the cage is going to be something really good to work on because just seeing how he's doing here, I think it's something that's going to be great for him because he's had the opportunity here because they have pads on the walls, and it's been really great that he's been able to have that practice.
Yeah, yeah, it's awesome. That wall's coming down and cross training's happening in cruises. I'm excited. It's really great.
Me too,
Uh,
man.
but you picked a great topic. I think we were talking earlier, and I think the topic you had in mind was really cool. So why don't you go for it and maybe tell me some of your thoughts on it?
Okay, which one are you thinking? Because I'm really digging the submission one. Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, yes, I definitely want to know. I want to talk about that one because I know we've talked about it before. You know my stance on it sometimes, but I've grown and I've learned over the years. So I definitely want to hear what you say now.
So I think like personally for me, um, first thing is like you got to learn the basics. I did not want to do that when I first started jiu-jitsu. I was like, nah, I'm gonna um jump straight into a bunch of wild submissions, and that did not work out for me. Took me a few months. Probably should have listened to my coaches. Um, but
And I was just saying because I had already been there. I had just gone through that, maybe a couple years before.
I think like I think both kind of topics actually kind of work really well into each other. As far
Yeah.
as submissions go, I think that once I realized that I needed to get my basics down, I really love the triangle, man. I think that the triangle is one of those chokes or one of those submissions that almost everyone can do. Um, it's really not like I know we talk about short legs versus long legs. Personally, I have very long legs, so the triangle works really well into my game. But I do think depending on who you're like rolling with, a triangle can be applicable anywhere. So if I had to pick a submission that everyone should know, it's the triangle. Triangles, and then of course the rear naked choke.
Oh yeah, rear naked choke has to be one of my favorites. I'm sure it always was, but you know what? We dug up some old videos the other day on an old phone, and man, if I didn't cringe when I said that my favorite move was the Imanari roll. So you know,
Oh,
shout out to white belt me for being a douchebag.
that's that's really funny. Oh, Mark, I want to see that video so I can have it like for blackmail. Like, yeah, this one time Mark said his favorite move was the Imanari roll.
I mean, and you mentioned it earlier. Training in garage is different. Not having a formal instructor and formal, classes and structure like that, it's different. But definitely, when I was a white belt, and I'm sure all of us as white belts are attracted to that flashy stuff. What was some of the stuff that attracted you as a white belt?
Definitely. So I saw the Imanari roll. I would literally wake up before Chad and I'd be on Reddit and I would just scroll through a bunch of random things that people were doing on Reddit, which is how I first saw the Imanari roll, how I saw flying armbar. But the Ezekiel is what I picked up off of the interwebs without discussing it with anyone first. So definitely, which actually the Ezekiel, like as far as like bullshit wipeout things, is not on the list to me. I think it's still a pretty applicable choke, in my humble opinion. You just got to be able to, kind of get it right. So I think it's like 50-50 is for like my white belt shenanigans, but definitely Ezekiel.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a really solid gi choke. And in the no gi, you have to be able to pull it off. Maybe be built for it or just commit to it. I know Leonard's on it. I think he was doing a no gi baseball bat last time we were rolling, and man, that's something I just don't ever think of doing in no gi. But some people can make it work. It's really cool.
I think like I will say I definitely do have a little bit of long arm advantage there. Because the Ezekiel fits pretty well into my game, both with gi and no gi. Just because I have the ability to really get in there and wedge myself in there with a lot of like just with a lot of pressure. But I will say it was something I was hitting a lot when I first started jiu-jitsu, and then I realized, man, this is making my training partners kind of uncomfortable. So I stopped doing Ezekiel and started focusing on like the basic submissions first, which was very good for me.
Yeah, it's not going to make you any friends at all. Stuff like
No.
me, once I found the guillotine, I'm sure none of my training partners enjoyed when I took on that mantle. But for those of you who maybe just joined, the topic today is white belts, what you should know, and maybe what you should not know as a white belt. And I can open up some of the speakers if anybody has any questions. If you guys want to talk about the moves that you were attracted to as a white belt, like Leonard, I would love to hear if you were chasing any of that flashy Instagram stuff as a white belt. Um, but while they're going, Katy, yeah, it's just the Imanari role was probably my biggest regret as a white belt. I have to look back in my white belt days and say all of the time I wasted training the Imanari role. If I could have that back and work on fundamentals, I'd probably be a lot better than I am right now.
So, speaking of fundamentals, I know that's a word we've tossed around a few times. What do you think are like fundamental submissions every white belt should know? Because when I think of fundamentals, I think of things that are applicable in anyone's game. And you build on that, and then you start to learn, hey, there's other things I can do that apply in my game. But fundamentals, I always think of like baseline, this is something that someone can do, like doesn't matter what their build is. That's kind of what I see as a fundamental.
Yeah, and so at the beginning, and Danaher's talked about this. Most places as a white belt, you come in and they show you maybe a kimura or an armbar from guard, maybe the triangle choke. They show you definitely the guard position, and that's what I used to do, and it's changed over the years. When I think of fundamentals, I think of first fundamental movement,
Ooh.
then fundamental positions, and then at the end of that, fundamental submissions. But I think it doesn't. The fundamental submission part doesn't change. I think the first two are the more important things: fundamental movement and fundamental positions.
I really like that. And I think I feel very privileged because I came from a martial art where I knew where my hands and feet were already. And I did not realize that a lot of people, if they come in off the street, are not bodily aware. And so that, like, fundamental movements. And of course, I had to learn fundamental jujitsu movements too, totally different from what I did. But
That's really
uh,
funny. It's like that scene in it's like that scene in Ricky Bobby where he's doing the interview. Like, I don't know what to do with my hand,
my hands. Yeah.
but that's exactly what it's like.
Well, and it's interesting because, like, again, I think if you come, even like there are people, right, that come in that have never done any sports before, and like I honestly, I feel like I take it for granted that I already had bodily awareness, and it really put me in a good position for jujitsu. And so I think when I was working with like brand new people who had never done sports before in jujitsu, it was kind of interesting, and I had to keep in mind like they don't know where their body parts are. And like, I know people joke about spazzy white belt, but truly, I think it's because you don't have coordination yet. You're not sure where to put your body parts to be in a good place. So I think fundamental movements and fundamental positions, I absolutely agree. So what would be some fundamental positions that you would teach first?
Um, I've got the five fundamental positions. You start showing them guard, half guard, side control, mount in the back, and I try to keep it there. The fundamental movement is what I've started doing in my kids' classes, and they've really, it's taken a while, but I've seen them blossom by just knowing how to do, focusing on things like a technical stand up, which isn't done in a lot of warm ups, but we focus on it heavily because I think it's so essential on the mat. That's a movement that you do while you're grappling, as opposed to maybe like a soldier crawl. The kids voted that one off the island real quick. They don't like the soldier. But I try to focus on stuff like that: technical stand-ups, sit-outs. We do samurai get-ups. The butterfly hop is something that I learned from Spencer that I put into my warm-up, and it's weird. People always give me a weird like look with it, but I guarantee it makes their butterfly sweep better. Anybody, if you cannot practice that move and not get better at the butterfly sweep.
Can you describe the butterfly hop for anyone who might not know what that is?
So, and it's still, we're pioneering here because it's a movement that you don't get a lot. But when people go to do a traditional butterfly sweep, they almost always fall to their back. And even if they fall to their side like they're supposed to, the hips stay on the ground. So what happens is what we have to do is when you fall to the side to initiate and complete your butterfly sweep, you post on your bottom leg and you lift your hips in the air, and your top leg, you reach as high into the air as you can get. And while you're doing that, you're posting on your head and your shoulder. So that's the proper position to finish this butterfly sweep. And it's something that I know a lot of white belts, blue belts, even purple belts, if they could do this movement a little better, I guarantee they would finish a whole lot more sweeps live.
I love that. Have you found, so I like your comment earlier about like the kids voting off movements off the island. Have you found anything where you started coaching it and you were like, this feels really good, and then you realized, maybe this shouldn't be a fundamental besides the one the kids voted off the island?
Yeah, like, and we brought some of the stuff back, but like when the kids would first come in, I would show them a Kimura sit up, which is great because it works. It's an exercise that you can work the sit up and work technique at the same time. Um, and maybe like, sloppy arm bars and teaching them how to throw up the triangle. But I've really went away from that stuff and focused on the movement and position first, and then I'll introduce the subs at the end. And I think I kind of get that from Professor Spencer because he's always been very, very heavy on position before submission, the old cliche.
I mean, I think it's good that again, someone may have skipped ahead of the position before submission, and it may have taken a good me 5 months to accept that that was how I was gonna have to do it. Man, I was sub hunted so hard. I still sub hunt, but I put my positions first this time, coach. You'll be so proud. But
No, it's a good style though. It makes you very dangerous when you can pull a submission out of anywhere. And people like you and people that hit this no-gi sub-only style are very dangerous to grapple with because at any time, it's like a heavyweight, or I mean, it's like a striker having that knockout punch.
I honestly think I got it from rolling with Chad. And the reason for that is because that man's did not go easy on me when we started. Chad is like 165 to 175, depending on like the season. And he did not go easy on me ever. And I realized that if I did not start quickly submitting him, he was just going to squish me. And I think I kind of have that same, like, I really, just like our guest was talking about on Wednesday, people my size have a very fast game. And I think that I think that just the coaching style we have now and being able to finally put the position and then those really quick subs has been incredibly helpful with me. So shout out to Chad for helping me speed up my game a little bit.
Nice. Um, we've got lines open if you guys want to ask a question or make a comment. Again, the topic of the day is white belts, what you should or should not know at the white belt level. But feel free to ask any questions.
Hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, it's Ryan. I've only been in Zia once. My son's been there a few times. Mark, you and I have texted a little bit. Katy, I enjoy your photos.
You.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I was gonna ask, so for the white belt spaz, right? Like, so I, I guess when you come into a gym, like if you've had from my experience, um, having pretty much only ever high school wrestling is my only organized martial arts, but I've probably for every high school wrestling match, unfortunately, and I know this is not a popular topic, I've probably had 10 or 15 situations where it wasn't organized. It was I was getting jumped, or I was in a fight or something like that. How, I guess my question is, when you're teaching, when you're training, how much of the coaching and the position over submission, like how much of the training is focused on if there's a mat below you, and how much of the training is focused on if you're in a self-defense situation in public, or maybe there's concrete or grass or whatever. Do you guys take that into account, and if so, how do you kind of judge what to coach on that front?
That's a great question, Ryan, and it's something that's changed in the way that I've been teaching over the last few years. Again, traditionally you're taught, kimuras from the guard and arm bars and stuff like that, and I've really changed the way that I've taught positions, and it's not changed in the sense of the way it's been taught for years. The really good teachers have always taught, position before submission, and there's a reason why even the points in the competitions are scaled the way they are, is because for each one that has more point value, it's a more dominant position. So whether we're on mats or not, I know we practice on mats all the time, but your jiu-jitsu should not be dependent on, on what's beneath you. You should always be looking to be in a dominant position, and that's usually on top, you know? And I think that's one of the big things that's changed in my teaching, is that I've I've shown less emphasis on the guard position when people first walk in the door, and more emphasis on being in top position, controlling top position. Because if you walk in the door and I give you this mindset of like jujitsu is this superpower, and even though you're on your back and someone's in your guard, you can sub anybody. That's not true. You can
Right,
get
a slam on concrete, it's over.
absolutely. You can get your ass kicked in full guard if you're on the bottom. So I really try to focus on, being on top is where you want to be. This is controlling. Now, if we are on our back, I think that's one thing that jiu-jitsu does very well, is that we know what to do when we're on our back, but that shouldn't be our first option. And there's a ton of very funny like videos on TikTok that show, jiu-jitsu guys only rolling on mats, I'll kick anybody's ass if we start on mats, from the ground. But I don't
I
know. I hope
haven't
that,
seen that, but I'm sure it's funny.
yeah, there's a ton of stuff out there. My martial arts shouldn't be conditioned on what my surface is. I should always look to be in a dominant position. I think that's why wrestling is so valuable. And I think a lot of the, on your back jujitsu stuff is needs to change and is changing, especially like with the MMA and combat jujitsu getting very popular.
Man, it's just so fun to know you're on a mat, though, isn't it?
It is. It gives.
It's tactical and fun, and yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. Now, a lot of the stuff that we do, if I was doing it on concrete or especially like on asphalt, worst case scenario, right? Um, it's going to hurt. My knees are going to get scraped up. I'm going to get banged up, but hopefully I'm only going to do it that once, and hopefully my training on the mat has prepared me to really stay as safe as possible. I love one of the memes that says, you know, uh, your jujitsu doesn't work on the streets because it doesn't work on the gym either. So you really have to get in the gym and train hard if you want to be prepared and be, formidable in a real fight.
Thanks for fielding that, man.
That Mark's last comment. Oh man, this is a hill I'm willing to die on. I truly think that it is so important that if you want to defend yourself with a martial art, you need to be training constantly. Number one, having a good gym to train at is really important. Speaking as a student at Zia, Professor Spencer is really, really good at saying, all right, guys, this is what you do if you're doing like sport jiu-jitsu. This is what you're doing. Like if you're competing or you're getting points. However, if you're doing this in a self-defense scenario, these are the steps you should take. Almost every single move he shows, he prefaces with that, which I think is awesome. The second thing is if you're learning to defend yourself and you're not practicing constantly, it's basically like you're giving yourself a 10% better chance. You know what I mean? Like, so it's so important. This is literally like a hill, especially women. Like I tell women this all the time. It's like, I know that it's really good to go to a self-defense seminar. I think it's awesome if you like branch out and you try it. But if you're not practicing the moves you learn, it's probably not going to be as successful as you want it to be. So to add on to that, so important that you go and train constantly.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just like anything. If you don't do it consistently, then it's not going to be as good. And when you run into that scenario, how good are your reflexes going to be? How good is your timing going to be? And that matters a lot in a combat sport.
Yes, sir. And I actually, to divert a little bit, I did have a question for Rob. Hi, Rob. I see you on there.
Hi,
And I want to
Katy.
bug you. So we were talking about fundamentals earlier, and I kind of want to pick your brain as to the fundamentals of judo versus what you first learned when you came into the jiu-jitsu gym.
So the fundamentals of judo. Um, Actually, here's a funny story first. So the basic fundamental throw is the osotogari, the foot sweep, the outer foot sweep that I taught all you guys first. Um, when I started getting more advanced in judo, I was telling my sensei, I'm Mr. Z, teach me this throw, teach me this throw, teach me this throw. I saw this throw on YouTube and I want to do it, I want to do it. And he's all, and I'm all like, all you do is you just have me like run over the basics and the fundamentals every time, and I'm getting tired of it. He's like, okay, like little short like Mexican man, like 5'3", 5'4", in his 60s. He's okay. Well, what'd you learn? And I'm all like, watch this. Like you get them in this position, and then you put your leg here, and then next thing I know, I'm on the ground and I'm looking at the ceiling. And all he did was he just foot swept me as I'm trying to throw him. And as I'm on the ground, he looks at me. He's all, that's why you do the basics. But back to your question, Katy. The very first thing for fundamentals is like what Mark said. Like he didn't teach me guard or half guard. The very first thing Mark taught me was dogfight, so I can control and be on top. And every time I'm rolling with someone, that's the first thing I want to do is I want to be on top, and I want to try to uh, control it and be on top, unless I'm rolling with Manser, because I know he's gonna hold my arm and give me an armbar or a wrist lock, and that's it. But yeah.
And it's different for different people. So if you guys don't know Rob's a 6'3" judo black belt. So
First degree.
yeah, he's a big guy. And for him, coming him and showing him guard when he first comes in as fundamentals is probably not the best way to go. What we need to teach him is how to get escape pins and stay on the top. But then we have, Katy, who comes in with a great striking background, but is, way smaller in stature. So the likelihood of her pinning someone on the ground changes. And I think that changes how you instruct people when they first come in.
Yeah, and then another thing I want to say before is like back to the self defense thing. So like Katie said, it's true that you have to keep practicing the moves you learn. Because in my judo classes, there were high school and college girls that would come into our class too, and we would teach them like how to get out of situations, like if they're being grabbed from behind or they're being grabbed from just like from if they're being grabbed, we would teach them how to throw someone from any kind of position, and we would drill that to them so they learn how to do it. And I really hope none of them ever had to use it, but I'm glad that they learned it.
For Mark.
Oh, and then Mark, Nicole's listening with me, and she has a question for you.
Awesome. Hi, Nicole.
Hey. So this is gonna sound like a really funny question, but you know, leave it to me. So if because I mean I see you guys do this and I'm thinking, oh, it looks so fun, but coming in as a white belt, right? Coming in as a brand newbie, kind of combining what Katie said, where if you don't come from a very heavy sports background, or maybe like, okay, so myself, like I was in sports in high school, but it was swimming and dance. So it certainly wasn't like the team sports, and I don't have the same awareness of where my hands go kind of thing that somebody with, volleyball or basketball or baseball or, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
How, and I didn't have brothers to beat up on me. I didn't have, so how do you have to address very often with people how to not panic when you're in a situation where, you're getting pinned, you're getting trapped, like how often do you have to address like it's going to be okay, or like the panic that can come with that?
That's a great question, Nicole. And with kids, you have to address it a lot because kids they will show the panic. And what's
Yeah.
funny is adults won't. They'll try to hide it as much as they can. But if you've been around it long enough, you can kind of pick up and tell. But adults put in those situations, and it's harder to see it. But my first experience live rolling, I tapped to side control just to the pressure of the position. The guy was bigger than me. I was doing all the stupid white belt things like, not putting my frames in and laying flat on my back. And I was dreading going back the next day or, the next class, which I literally felt panic or I felt anxiety about it. So I always go back to that when I'm teaching new people, and I really try to understand and put myself back in that position where, it's scary when you don't know these things. So hopefully I can teach you the things that you need. And this has always been my philosophy, as fast as possible. There's a lot of other places that will come in and take your money to teach you martial arts, but they put you on such a slow track. And I know, I understand the reasons why it's been done like that, but it shouldn't be done like that anymore. And we should be teaching people how they could be as good as possible, as fast as possible, not keeping them paying for for years just to keep them on, a basic technique. But I try to address that, and hopefully I do. But with the kids, it's much more prevalent. They panic and they freak out and they cry all the time. And for the kids, I think it's a positive learning experience because they're either going to experience that on the mat in a safe environment around friends, or they're going to experience it at school where they could be ridiculed and where they could be teased and now put on social media. We didn't have to deal with that back then. So it's a big thing of mine when I teach to make sure that people don't feel that panic and don't feel that anxiety, because I felt it and I know exactly what it feels like. And Katie, if you have any comments, please, definitely.
I think so full transparency, I actually did have a full blown panic attack on the mats. We were doing gi, and I was having a bad day. I came in feeling like crap. Like, I already didn't feel good. We were in gi, and we did full rounds the whole time, and they were really intense rounds. So it was like an hour and 15 minutes of nothing but rolling, and I got stacked. Which basically, like, so basically, the person was in my guard, and they just like an easy way to describe it is like they kind of leaned on top of me, right? So my pelvis is getting closer to my face. And I felt something pop in my back, and I was trying to hold it in. I was like, I'm okay. I know, like, he's not gonna hurt me. I'll be fine. And suddenly I just like freaked out. I couldn't breathe. And like, I'd never had that happen before. Luckily, Chad was there. And so we rushed off to the weight room, and I just cried. And I cried for like a solid like 5 minutes of just crying. And the poor guy that I was rolling with was like so concerned that he like broke my spinal column. So it happens. I had been training for like 7 or 8 months at that point, and honestly, it just happens. And I think a lot of it is you hold really high expectations for yourself, and sometimes that can put you in a position to where you're putting a lot of pressure and anxiety on yourself. But also, I think, like, above all, handling anxiety and handling panic in the gym is having a bunch of good people that are going to take care of you. Because almost every single grappler I've ever talked to has had at least one time where they were like, yep, I tapped to something that was scaring me. I had a panic attack. And I think the most important thing is fully understanding that you are in a very serious combat sport, and you need to be able to trust your teammates and know that they're going to have your back. So for me personally, I would say understanding that when you walk into the gym, as much fun as it is to be around people that you love, you're joking around, like, it is a combat sport. You're going to be put into compromised positions. But having that team there, dude, like, I was embarrassed. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's embarrassing to break down in front of your teammates, but I did not feel judged. I felt like they wanted to make sure I was okay. So for me personally, I think that was super important.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. I have a question for you, Nicole, because you said you swam, and that was one of your sports, which
Mm-hmm.
we usually try to bring up, like, what kind of prior, experience do you have? But that I feel that same type of panic when I'm swimming. I've always said jujitsu striking is like running. The cardio that you do striking is a lot like the cardio you do when you're running. The cardio you do with jiu-jitsu is different. That, in my opinion, is more like the cardio you do when you're swimming. But I am terrified of the water. So, did you have to deal with that panic when you were swimming competitively?
See, and that's funny. No, not at all. I would be. I've never. I think probably because. Um, I mean, I guess it's just something that we've always done in my family. I mean, we're in swimming lessons when we're babies, kind of thing. So we grew up swimming, and so I never panicked in the water. I've never, and I've been in some pretty dicey situations, like in the ocean or in a wave pool. I got sucked up against the wall, against the pump, and I thought I was going to drown, kind of thing.
Hmm.
But I've never panicked in the water, but I am terrified of, like, okay, I'm gonna go, right? Like, I'm gonna try this out, and I'm gonna be like the 5-year-old who just loses it because I can't breathe and I can't move, and like I'm getting squished, and I do not want to do that. That would be so humiliating. And it's funny because Robert, ever since we started dating, he's like, I know you want to learn martial arts. I want to teach you judo. I want to teach you judo. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Come on, come on, come on. It'll be fun. Like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand what it's like to be. I mean, I used to be a whole lot thinner. You don't understand what it's like to be Katy in my size, and everyone pushes you all the time. You're moved out of the way all the time. You're squished all the time in a crowd. People don't realize that if they're not like our size or Katy's size now. And so the thought of, like, someone grabbing my neck and grabbing my clothes and jerking me around. Oh no. Absolutely not. So that's why I was like, no, I don't want to. I would love to do this, you know, because you can do no gi, but no, oh no,
She doesn't like the gi. She's scared of
no.
the gi.
You know,
Mm-mm.
she's not the only one. It's not that you're scared of the gi. It's just a lot of people prefer no gi now. It's the way that grappling is right now. But I appreciate that comment. I mean, that's a great and honest comment, and I feel like, in the way that you don't panic in the water, and it's simple fundamentals that you learned when you were younger about how to just stay in the water, stay afloat, and move your body. Those same simple fundamental mechanics on the mat, hopefully we can teach you so that you don't panic when someone's trying to squish you. And I tapped to, side control, and I can tell you it was one of my white belt epiphanies where I realized, like, oh well, if I keep my frames in, which is my arms close to my chest, he can't smash me. And it was just mind blowing at the time as a white belt. But it's such a fundamental position that, and I nag people all the time at the gym. Keep your fucking arms in. I always say, keep your arms in, keep
Mm-hmm.
your arms in.
Yep.
I
Yep.
tell Rob all the time, I know, because people are trying to be nice when you're demoing, and they kind of, when they're in bottom side control, they hug you. And it bugs me. I was like, keep your arms in, keep your arms in, always.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but we also, Ryan, you had a question, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, since I raised my hand, so many interesting things have come up.
Yeah.
But I'll say the kind of working backwards. Like, I think, was it Nicole on Rob's line? I
Yes.
think
Yes.
that's right.
Yes.
Yeah. So your commentary about swimming versus running and all of that, and Mark led into that. Like, I grew up in the water, in the ocean, and I was also a distance runner. And there's definitely that parallel between, grappling and swimming, feeling like you're drowning, like you can't, like the oxygen just won't come, versus striking, you feel like you can take like a shoulder pump breath, and running, you feel like you can take like a 3 stride break or whatever. Like, that was an amazing parallel that I had not heard before. But getting back to something Katy was talking about, I wanted to ask a question about, man, I don't know how to phrase this. I already heard Mark drop an F bomb, so I guess I can. The floor is open.
Go for it. Yeah.
But like, how do you keep assholes out of your gym? Meaning, when somebody is doing that thing when they're trying to work over. Katy was talking about this earlier, a little bit earlier. When you're obviously, either you're a white belt and you're tapping for reasons that you don't necessarily, that aren't actually submissions, right? Like side control without your arms in, or whatever else. Or there's just somebody that recognizes your green and wants to be a jerk. How do you manage that as an owner? Because you guys obviously do a great job of it. Like I said, I've only been there once, but my son has been there a bunch, and we talk a lot. And he's the guy that would recognize that. So you guys obviously manage that well. How do you do that, man? It must be a delicate process.
It's hard, and we've talked about it before, especially Professor Spencer and I. It undoubtedly starts at the top. If the instructors allow it, then it's going to continue, and it's sad to say that in some places it's even, promoted
Sweep
and
the leg, right? Yeah.
encouraged. Yeah. And I mean, it's really sad. It's not, I don't think it's the majority, but they are out there. um but I think, and then this is going back to the vibe that, Spencer created in his first gym, that we continued on in the group of people. There's been people that we've had to, politely ask not to come back or to find another place to train. And that's the reality of it, is that you don't have to train here. And if you're going to come with that attitude, especially repetitively as we've talked to you about it or brought it up, um, then there's definitely probably another gym, and Spencer calls them bleed only gyms. You can always go to those bleed only gyms, and do that all day long. but that's definitely not the environment that we wanted to create. And I think we've done a really good job of attracting people that are like-minded.
That's amazing. That's that talk track of go to your bleed only gym. That's I think that might be what I was looking for. Like, how do you say it to somebody like that? How do you kick them out and not
That's a
piss them
very
off?
nice way of saying it. Yeah, it's a very nice way of saying it, and it's a kudos to Spencer, because Spencer's one of the nicest guys on the planet. But it's a I would definitely have different words to describe them. I know Leonard's on. I don't know if you're in a place where you can talk, Leonard, or not, but I mean, Leonard runs a gym in Alamo, and he's done a great job of attracting some really good competitors, but keeping a really good vibe too. I never feel bad when I roll with his guys. They do very well managing, going very hard, and still keeping everybody safe, which is really cool. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah, it certainly is. I will say too, I don't know I cannot remember his name, Mark. Big old giant guy though. The one time I was in your gym, he's easily 250.
Mm.
And he told he said something to me like gosh, what did he say? Like, I can tell you're a wrestler. You stick your neck out a lot. And he yoked on it a couple times, and he could tell like I was, I that it hurt. And he was like, okay, well, I want you to keep coming back. So he I could tell he dialed it back, was my point. And that was a culture thing where I was like, okay, this guy obviously knows he can own me anytime, but he's made the decision to like work with me and teach me, which was cool.
Yeah, man. What's the fun of just hammering somebody? And I've rolled with guys like that. I've seen them on the mat where they'll spam the same basic move over and over and over again on somebody. And like, if I hit a move on you 3 times, then after that 3rd time, I'm going to tell you how to defend it, because none of us are going to have any fun. And that's how I look at it. I'm looking to have fun and learn at the same time. But it's going to be no fun for either of us if I just hit you with a Kimura for 5 minutes and don't ever tell you what to do about it. What good is that as far as, helping someone along their path?
Totally.
Guys, we're right about we're a little bit over time now. I mean, this was great. I thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you guys for participating in the conversation. This is exactly what I wanted to create, was a space for people to come in, to ask questions, to share their experiences, and just bring jiu-jitsu to the spotlight and show as many people as we can what this art has done for us and what it could do for other people. Katy, thank you so much for always being there, sending me all kinds of great ideas, and definitely always being here to participate. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be a little co-host. Super cool. These podcasts are awesome. I think it's really cool to be able to talk about jiu-jitsu and really make this martial art accessible in a really friendly way. So I appreciate being here.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for stepping on the mat with me and Katy. We'll be back on Monday, 8:30. We might have Jamie on. I'm not too sure. I'd like to get him back on and hear him again, some of his thoughts. But you guys be safe. Have a good weekend. Peace.